Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze. Today is Wednesday, November 18th, 2015, and I just wanted to check in with you for a moment, not to talk about politics, not to talk about terrorist attacks or attacks on your freedom or any of that heavy stuff, but really just something personal for me that I'd like to share with you and maybe, I don't know, inspire you in some way or at least just kind of show you something that's in my head. This week I'm celebrating an anniversary that is extremely important to me. It is 10 years now this week, the week before Thanksgiving. 10 years ago in 2005, I was arrested as a 20-year-old young dude for possession of crystal meth. That began this massive change that has led me right now until this moment speaking with you and doing all the amazing things that I'm involved and blessed to be involved in. And really it was also a major turning point for me when dealing with my issues of drug addiction and also looking deeper than my use of drugs and trying to understand the reason that I was putting all of these substances into my body and what I was trying to escape and what I was trying to achieve. Some of you may be familiar with this story, especially if you read my book, The Conscious Resistance. Chapter 8 discusses briefly my journey through drug addiction and getting through that. But a lot of those details are left out to be written in a future book, maybe, possibly, probably. But I wanted to share some of those with you for those who care. So, as I said, November 2005, I was pulled over, driving around. At the time, I'd been on and off crystal meth among many other drugs for about a 10-month period, and I was homeless. I was kind of bouncing around, staying with friends, getting kicked out of my parents' house because I was, just acting crazy, and I'd been evicted out of my apartment that I was living in. I'd seen plenty of friendships and romantic relationships ended over my behavior and my drug abuse, and it was a very dark time for me. This is also something that is a celebratory anniversary for me. Let me make that clear, because sometimes I've been noticing recently when I tell people, guess what, it's 10 years since I've been arrested, which is a super exciting thing for me. They're like, oh, I'm sorry, that must have been so rough. And it was rough, and it wasn't fun, and I regretted every action that led up to that moment for quite a period of time. But now I'm 10 years into the future and I'm looking back and I realize how necessary that was. I don't believe that prisons save people. I don't believe that the judicial system is set up to help you. I don't believe that any of these programs that they sent me to, or the facilities, the state prisons and all this stuff, I don't believe any of those things are designed to produce the outcome that I have achieved. But it's something that I was able to do with that time. So I just want to make that clear. This is not, some kind of endorsement of go to prison and turn your life around. No, those places are horrible and they're not built or designed to create an environment that can allow you to really thrive and to work on your issues. This is something that you're going to have to seek out yourself as an individual. And that's what I did. But before we get to that positive stuff, I'd like to give you a brief walk down memory lane of what led to that arrest. As I said, this was a 10-month period. I moved in my place November 2004 and I was evicted by January 2005. So sometime in that period I started using crystal meth, and I was already open to a lot of other drugs, doing cocaine and taking ecstasy and acid and smoking weed and doing whatever else I could. Like I said, I was really at a lost point, and pretty much anything that you handed me I was probably going to try or be willing to at least consider. And this is something that I experienced with crystal meth. I had some acquaintances who were involved in crystal meth, and I got this new apartment, and basically my house became the place to party. All of a sudden, among all my younger friends, we're all 20, 21, 22 around that, my house became the place to come get down, to come do your drugs in and to be crazy and wild. And I sort of loved it. I liked the environment. It was a lot of the sex, drugs, and rock and roll that I was really into at that time. I was a crazy punk rocker, and we loved to rage and get drunk and be loud and rowdy and do cocaine and go cause trouble. This was just a part of my lifestyle now, and it all seems so foreign even talking about it now, but that's the life I was living at that time. And so people started coming, and I knew they were using crystal meth, and it wasn't really anything that, I'm sure some people were like, oh my god, there's crystal meth in my house. Like, to me it was like, okay, well I guess we're partying tonight. It really wasn't anything that gave me any pause, but it was, maybe a few weeks before I actually tried it, I'd met, these guys that started to come to my house, and they're like, oh, we're getting into this new stuff. And the only thing I knew about crystal meth was that this is going to keep me awake at night, and that was kind of the only introduction I've been given. So after a couple of weeks of putting it off and telling the guys like, hey, you guys can party here and chill here, whatever. I'm going to bed. I got to go to work in the morning. I was being responsible. And then I had a couple of days off from work, and I decided, fuck it, I'll give it a shot. I'll try this stuff. And, I tried some, and later that night I spent $200 to get more, and the funny thing is crystal meth isn't really that kind of drug like crack where it's like, you use it, or cocaine even, you use it and then a couple hours later it's gone and you kind of wish you had more. Crystal meth is like you do a little line or you smoke a little bowl and you're going to be awake for 24 hours and you don't need any more of it. But the thing is, you get this really like antsy, just you can't sit still feeling, and the only thing that really you think is going to make you feel better or kind of get rid of that feeling is to do more. So it's like you do this drug, it makes you all kind of anxious and you're flying high. There's definitely like a really positive feeling there for a while. But for me, it made me super introverted, and I'm normally extroverted and vocal and talk about my ideas and my thoughts and feelings. But crystal made me super quiet and just internalized. I couldn't get out any of the issues I had. I just overthought everything. And like I said, I spent $200 that night. And one of the downfalls of using these drugs, one of the many downfalls, is that you lose weight. And I'm already a pretty skinny dude, but when I got arrested and around that time I weighed 110 pounds, I believe, and I typically weigh 160 to 170. So if you think I'm skinny now, you have no idea how skinny I really can be. And so after weeks of starting to use this stuff, I just started to get too weak to do my job. I couldn't even go to work anymore and function. I couldn't lift up boxes. I unloaded trucks, and I was the head cook of this barbecue kitchen, and I did a lot of carrying of boxes of meat and stuff like that. And I literally started to notice like, oh my god, I can't pick this up. Like, I was starting to get that weak. I was starting to be really sketchy with my work schedule and showing up on time. So everybody else has to continue to live, even if I'm in this drugged out world. So eventually they fired me. They're just like, sorry, you seem like a nice guy, but you've got some shit going on because you're not showing up. And yeah, that was, I lost that job, and my newfound acquaintances and friends reassured me though that there was no reason to worry, that they were happy to move into my apartment and to help pay for the rent by selling drugs out of my apartment. And I guess at the time I was like, okay, fuck it, let's do this, So they moved in, and before I knew it, there was cocaine, there was heroin, there was crystal meth, and pretty much any other drug you can think of was being used, sold, and experimented with in this house. Oh, also there was a lot of acid too. So obviously this is a really crazy time period, and that was November to February. By February, the people that were staying there, we were all addicted to different drugs. There was, as usually happens with drugs, there was lots of drama. There was, just all sorts of crazy shit. And I remember there was some kind of fight. Somebody threw a chair and it hit a window and it broke my window. And so, I don't know, somehow the landlords got called, the apartment manager, and I was issued an eviction notice. And I remember waking up and seeing like, wow, I just got served an eviction notice. I have 24 hours to get the hell out of this place, and I have no idea where to go. By that point, I had already kind of burned some bridges with my parents, because after I lost my job, they gave me a job opportunity working for one of my family members, and I was too fucked up to wake up to go do it. And that was kind of what I was doing. I was burning these bridges. I was just marching forward, not really sure what I was doing. I was lost in a lot of emotion. I was dealing with, the eventual breakup, because obviously no woman or no partner wants to deal with somebody who's constantly fucked up and doesn't remember when they hung out. And that literally was where I was at. I was addicted to Xanax for maybe 5 or 6 months, and then when I woke up I was dating somebody. And that's literally how I felt. I'm like, whoa, okay, so I guess I'll roll with this. But long story short, that year progressed, and as I said, I ended up becoming homeless for a period of time, breaking into storage lots to find places to sleep, staying at Walmart all hours of the night because it's 24 hours and you can hang out there. And just a side note here, if you've never been to Walmart at 2 a.m., I guarantee you it's something that you might not be prepared for. And also, I can guarantee you, if you do go to Walmart at like 2, 3, 4 a.m., you're definitely going to see some shady looking folks, and they're more than likely using meth, because for whatever reason, people go to Walmart when they're up all night. You're up all night, you got nothing to do, you just want to doodle and draw and stay busy. You're like, okay, let's go outside, let's go to Walmart. Some people call it tweaker hour. tweak is a nickname for crystal meth. Tweaker is obviously a user of crystal meth. And I did that for a while, and I met some people who at that time I really felt like they were, father figures, or almost they were important people to me at that time. I felt like they took me under their wing, and unfortunately at that time them taking me under their wing meant giving me drugs to sell. And I was like, wow, these people really care about me. They give a shit. They're like handing me drugs and telling me to go make money, and they're letting me get high and chill at their houses. Everybody else has told me to fuck off and that I'm addicted to drugs and all this stuff. You know what? They're all just crazy. I'm just going to hang out with this old dude because he seems to know what's up. And I developed that relationship, that friendship, and I started to become a drug runner for this dude who was a lifelong convict, and I have no idea what happened to him. Unfortunately, I would guess he's probably back in prison. But I did that, all through 2005. There was a lot of drama that I don't really need to get into, but definitely a lot of drama. I had like $4,000 stolen from me around this time period. My friends were all leaving the city because we had friends who were dying from the drugs and were addicted from drugs. It was just a very, very bad time. And over that summer, it really got worse. I had a nice relationship that was making me feel like life was worth living for a little while, but I was still really just depressed, and I was in this dark place, and but I was also starting to recognize that I wasn't happy, and that was important. That was like a breaking moment when I started to realize, and when I started to have people tell me, dude, you don't even look like you're happy when you're using these drugs. And I was like, I don't know if I am. I just can't stop, and that's such a weird feeling, to watch yourself doing things and not knowing why you're doing them and knowing that they're hurting you. And so yeah, that happened. Eventually, later at the end of that summer, acquaintance of mine, I told him, dude, I really want to quit using. I'm ready to stop this, and he told me he was interested in the same thing, which ended up being a lie. And basically, we found an apartment complex that would get us into an apartment with, the first month's rent free, and some crazy deal that I can't remember now. And all we had to do was get the apartment managers some crack. So I'm like, okay, this is off to a good start. We're paying the managers in crack to get into our new place. But I figured this was a new start, and fuck it, right? Like, this is a time to start over. Maybe it's a little rocky start, but I'm gonna do this. And I was super determined. I had a vehicle at the time that thankfully I never sold or, gave away to any crackheads or anything like that. But I was always broke and I could never put gas in it. But I was really seeing this as an opportunity, like, okay, I'm gonna get a job. I'm gonna, stop using this shit and just get my life straight. And unfortunately, though, that was not the first time that crack would be involved in that apartment, and it was only a matter of weeks or months. I can't even remember how long I was actually there. Maybe I think I was there for a couple of months, and literally I was like Harry Potter. I was sleeping in the room under the stairs. It was a loft, one room upstairs, one downstairs, kitchen, and a little tiny storage room under the stairs, and that's where I slept. And I would just trip on acid and do drugs and just stay in there. But as I said, the seed had already been planted in me that I wasn't happy and that I wasn't doing what I really wanted to do. Throughout this period of time, the Derrick Broze that you guys may know through Facebook or through social media, YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff, is not the Derrick Broze that I'm describing. Like, I have always been an intelligent person, but that was all buried. All my power, my strength, my intelligence was all buried under this cloud of pain and depression, and I was using drugs to try to escape all that, and so yeah, it was very difficult for me, but eventually I decided it was enough. I started to tell my roommate, basically I told him, dude, let's not bring any crack in this house, because I started to notice there was an abundance of crackheads around our apartments, and in the complex itself there was a lot of crack dealing. And he's like, yeah, sure, no crack dealing. Then it was like, okay, people are meeting up at our house to buy their crack. And I'm like, all right, dude, but we're not selling crack. Like, that's the line, right? And then, of course, that line got crossed. Like, oh, we're not selling crack. Okay, well, we're not going to be using crack. All these lines were crossed. And I just realized I couldn't take it. I remember a very, very clear memory. And I was on ecstasy. I was feeling good. I'm like rolling balls, just listening to some music, hanging out with this dude. And that's kind of the way that lifestyle is, that you always want to just stay high on something else because you don't want to stop long enough to really think about what you're doing. So as long as I was staying high, I'm like, okay, I'm good. Like, I got this figured out. And it was during that roll, though, I remember standing by the kitchen and talking to him, and just, even though I was feeling good from the chemical reaction taking place in the drugs, it was also like I just knew that it wasn't where I needed to be anymore. And I remember from that point on, I started telling him, like, dude, please don't offer me any lines of meth, because I did a lot of lines. I preferred to snort it over smoking it, and I don't inject shit. So yeah, and I was like, dude, please don't offer me anymore. Like, I'm serious, I want to quit doing this. And he was like, yeah, me too, man. And then does a line or whatever. But I was serious. I was done. I couldn't do it anymore. And so from that moment, I stopped using meth, and I truly credit cannabis for helping me get through that, because I remember sitting in the corner of the house, just in this room, and I had a bong, and I would just load bowl after bowl after bowl. I was selling a lot of bud at the time, and I would literally just load bowl after bowl after bowl and just get as high as I could and just stay high so that I could stay away from the craziness. And I'm just sitting there in the corner, like, watching like these drug deals, these crackheads, like people arguing and fighting, people pulling guns out, like all this stuff that I'd been around over the last year, and sitting there starting to think, like, what the fuck am I involved in? Like, how did I get to this point, you know? And you know, by that point I had already burned all my bridges with my parents. You know, I couldn't really just go back there or anything, and so I stayed there, and I was super just motivated and super determined to make that happen, to like push myself out of this on my own. And I remember being like, telling myself, like, wow, it's been 1 day since I've used, it's been 2 days, it's been 3 days, you know, and that went on for a period of time until maybe a month or so. And meth isn't a physically addicting drug, it's really a mental thing. So it was only a matter of breaking those mental chains before I was able to, like, literally just stand up and walk out. That's all I did. I just grabbed my stuff, said, peace dudes, I'll see you guys around, got in my car, and I drove to my parents' house. And I went there and I humbled myself before them, and I said, dude, I've been fucking up. Like, you guys were right, I have been fucking up, but you're pushing me away, and I'm tired of going to bed hearing crackheads smoke crack, you know? Like, please, whatever it takes, let me come back in your house and I'll get my shit straight. And that was what I did, you know? I told my mom as well at the same time, like, I know you don't like me smoking weed, but I honestly need to smoke weed right now because my anxiety is so fucked up from doing so much crystal meth, like, over this past 10 months. And she dealt with it, and she helped me try to get a job. I tried to use a fake piss test to get a job because they were doing drug tests, so I could really start making this happen. But you know, I failed the drug test, and I had an upcoming trip. I was supposed to be taking a trip to Washington State, and somebody had already bought the plane ticket for me, and I promised them I would pay them back. So I did what I had learned to do. I went and picked up an 8-ball of crystal meth, and I knew that I still had contacts in that world and that I could sell it. You know, I was no longer interested in using it. I still was determined not to use it, and I didn't. You know, I haven't used it. It was just, I knew that I could sell drugs and that I had those connections and that I could make money in that way. And so that's what I did. I picked it up. I sold maybe a little bit of it. I went and like bagged it up. It was all bagged up separately. It was in like a pill bottle. And as I was saying at the time, I've been just driving around so much and just, I was so whacked out of my mind that I was always driving around with my bong in my car, and I had like the Canna Bible. If you've never looked up the Canna Bible, go check it out. But I had the Canna Bible in my car, I had this bong, I'm driving around with all these drugs, and over that period of time, the 10 months leading up to November 2005, I had acquired a number of tickets, and I never went to court. I was like, oh, whatever, a cop pulling me over for speeding or for whatever, registration, because I was just spending all my money on drugs. I was so fucked up, I just didn't take care of any of that stuff. So I had warrants out for me, you know, and it was just the fate of the universe or something that was planned or my own stupidity, whatever. I was pulled over in November 2005, and the cop came up, you know, and I'm shaking. The crazy thing is, let me just throw this out there, I was actually pulled over twice within 10 minutes. I was pulled over once, I was on the way to go get some weed from someone, so I left my parents' house and was driving around and was having some trouble finding this dude, and then I get pulled over in a neighborhood and I'm like totally freaking out because I know that I've got the drugs on me and I also know that I have warrants. So I'm just like, oh my god, I'm like freaking the hell out. And the lady comes up and just writes me a ticket and was like, you know, you should take care of that, and lets me go. So I'm just like, holy shit, oh my god, thank you God, fuck the weed, I'm going home. You know, I just started heading back to my mom's house. Like, I just wanted to get out of this, you know, area, this danger zone. And literally less than, you know, 5 minutes as I'm heading back towards my mom's house, this cop pulls out of randomly, and who knows if this was anything related or not, but it was super suspicious the way this cop pulled out and pretty much tailgated me to a light, and I knew that as soon as the light turned green, he was going to turn his lights on and pull me over. And that's what happened. He pulled me over, wrote me a ticket for whatever he said I was doing, and then was like, and you have warrants, and I need you to step out of the car, you're under arrest. And, you know, my whole life up to that point flashed before my eyes, because I'd been arrested before for bullshit, but I'd never been arrested for anything serious, and I'd never been arrested for possessing drugs. And I definitely knew that getting caught with crystal meth was going to be something serious. And, you know, basically, I went in there and I was sentenced to, you know, spend the next year locked up. I was sent to a program. I had to do all this rehabilitation, and from November 2005 till the following fall, I was locked up, and then I was released. I was out for 5 months, and then I failed a drug test, and I was sent back for another 90 days to another facility, and then I was out for a good year. In that process, I started drinking a lot, and then I got a DWI while on probation, got locked up again in the beginning of the summer of 2008 for 4 more months, and then I got out for the last time with a felony on October 2008, about a month before Obama got elected to president. It was a really, really weird time to be, you know, going through all that stuff, and I feel like I really missed out on a lot of what that was going on in the world. But the whole time I was in there, when I was going through that experience, I mean, at first my family and I, we were trying to fight the situation and trying to find a way to get me out, you know, but once I had to accept that, like, no, this is going to be where I'm at, it was a very difficult situation to be in that space, surrounded by so much ego and fear, and it's not really a good environment. It's not conducive to learning, to going within and to becoming stronger necessarily for everyone. You know, not everybody goes in those experiences and becomes better. Some people become lifelong criminals. I met lots of good people within there, some who have died, some who continue to use drugs and, you know, commit crimes and go through that whole life and live a part of the system, and others who've changed their life around. And so it's really interesting to see how that happens. I was able to spend time reflecting on what got me to that position. You know, I grew up in a family of people who have a history of drug abuse and have a history of prison, and I had to really face that and to decide what direction I was headed and how I got myself in this position. And having a father who spent most of my life in prison and been addicted to drugs, I really had to ask myself if this is the direction I wanted to go to, and I decided not to. And I had an experience where, you know, I came across a quote from the Buddhist Bible, the Dhammapada, in the newspaper one week, and I had a family member start mailing me chapters of the Dhammapada, and I just started reading about Buddhism and reading about all kinds of things and got into meditation. And really, when I got out to being able to go outside, and I would run the track every single day, and even the second time when I got locked up and we would go downstairs to the basement to work out, I would use the treadmill. And for me, just running and jogging, it was like every mile, every lap I did was one day closer to home, you know. And I remember I used to think about this, like, at some point in the future, all of this is going to be a distant memory. None of this is going to matter anymore, you know. And I just couldn't wait for that moment, because I was tired of having to either be locked up or deal with probation officers, deal with all this stuff. And really now I look at it so differently, is that I don't think people should be locked up in cages for using drugs, even though I think I was misusing and abusing drugs, and that's mostly what people do with a lot of these things. I think cannabis and psychedelics can be used as tools for medicine and healing, but I was doing a lot of abusing because there were deeper issues that I needed to deal with, and I started to work on that stuff so that I could become stronger and become more healed and work through those layers of issues that a lot of us don't really stop to spend the time to do because we're so busy. And for whatever reason, I've had time in nature in the past when I've traveled, and when I was locked up, I was given this space to just be in my own mind and my own heart and to use it for something positive. I wrote tons. I really got to know myself better, and that was the beginning of a process that continues to this day. You know, 5 years after getting locked up in 2005, 2010 was around the time I started the activist community, the Houston Freethinkers. A couple years after that, you know, I got involved with journalism and all the beautiful things and beautiful people I've met and being able to travel, and I constantly feel blessed because 10 years later, and I'm doing something that's positive. I'm using my brain, my power, my heart, my energy, and contributing to the world and trying to make it better. And that to me is what makes life worth living. That makes me feel so great for all the times that I thought about killing myself or tried to kill myself or wanted to die and was just drowning in drugs and pain. And it also wants me just to say, you know, to any of you who are suffering in those ways, let's have a conversation. Let's talk. You know, there's a reason to live, and you have to create it. You have to build your own cause and give yourself purpose, because the world is crazy. It's also beautiful, and it's whatever we make of it. And I've decided that for me, I want to be alive. I don't want to be drugged out all the time. As I said, I believe in the power of cannabis, but I don't need all these other things. I went through all that, and now I see that I'm a whole person, and I can take on everything the world has to offer without being drugged out of my mind. I have a lot more to offer that way, and I can actually contribute to the world. So, yay, you know. I just wanted to share that with you guys. I know this video went on longer than I intended it to, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that something I said, you know, you can relate to and it resonates with you. Please give this a thumbs up, share it if you enjoy it, follow us on Facebook and all that good stuff. And I'll talk to you soon. Remember, you're not alone, and you are stronger than you might think. Peace.